Well, here we are. The last rail's finally been bought, the CB&Q. The blue player bought it after having gotten here. And incidentally, the SAL has this kind of terrible track. He had to, because he's got the SOU SAL connection, he had to take off here, or here, and run all the way around here to get to Jacksonville. And now he has to get back out the same way. But even though this track that runs up to here, it doesn't quite go anywhere. And it doesn't connect to the stuff he needs it to, which is just one of the factors. Sometimes you're buying track that doesn't help you. But the CB&Q is very helpful to him because he rolled Denver. If he hadn't bought it, someone else, and he didn't know he was going to roll Denver, right? But someone else would have bought it and forced him to pay at least $10,000 to get in there. So one of the advantages of the situation. Anyway, that raises the rates to everyone to $10,000 a trip. It's going to be painful for red, but people are keeping red in the game, you know? No reason not to. All right, yeah. So, let's see where we are here. We made our way around a few times. Red got another bad pull. They're getting... all they've got is the SP, so almost everything's a bad pull. They're getting a northeastern run, which would have been bad even when they had track, but now this may be their death. They've got 20-something thousand. That'll get them about halfway there before they have to sell off the SP then. So they're on their doom roll. They're going down. Yellow, though, is feeding them 10,000 a turn, which is not helping the situation because, well, except maybe red will end up feeding yellow. But red just wants out, so it doesn't really matter to them. And yellow basically does too. Some of the other players. And so here's the thing I was thinking about and why I picked it up again. Well, I was thinking about it in the back of my head, forgot about it, and then picked it up not knowing. It's kind of like when you go to the bathroom and forget you have to pee. So the issue is, again, looking at that, hey, what about people bailing? Well, a game where there's so much incentive for people to bail out of, and where they can make dumb moves in order to end the misery, not just for themselves, but for everyone. I'm not saying it's misery for everyone necessarily, but if you're that miserable and you want to play something else, well, trying to end the game quicker makes sense. So then the whole, and the only way you can do that may be by feeding someone, by king making. And that's kind of a problem with a game like this. It's not a matter of, oh, we're making an alliance and between us, one of us wins, the other kind of comes in second. That you can almost write off and say it makes sense. The game doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really represent business type practices. So it's just this weird sort of situation where the gaminess is working against. And that's one of the real problems that I have with it. And to tell you the truth, all the same things can be said about the Mayfair Crayon Rails. And, you may have this desire not to be king making, not to throw the game, whatever. But, it's hard not to when you're sitting in a situation like this. And there's certainly a desire to do so in some senses, to just get the damn thing over with. But, hey, I don't want to sit here and wait for you guys to finish. And nobody else is going to be falling out. It's too hard to get people out of the game. Anyway. I'm just saying that things like that could enter into people's decisions. Some people maybe more than others. I certainly usually play it out to the bitter end and try to win throughout the whole thing. But, in a lot of ways you can understand why somebody would want out. All right. Anyway, keep going. All right. I'm going to do something I've not done yet with a game, and I'm calling it. Calling it when it's not obvious who's winning. It's not, but I'm having an absolutely miserable time soloing this. And that was actually one of the things, as soon as I bought it, I realized after like one or two plays, this game just solos terribly. It's worse solo by far than it is in person, I think, because you've got the misery of counting and keeping track of everything for everyone. The little trains have helped a lot. I used to do it always with just the pawns, and that was really bad because I couldn't remember who was going in each direction. But, honestly, I don't think anybody's watching these. There's like 10, 15 people watching them, and I think it's just to see how miserable I can make myself. There's not much to learn at this point in the game. I think I've stated what I know about it, and it was just kind of a bad idea to solo this, but I can remember having, done so in the past every now and then. I think I usually did quit, though, because it drags, and it drags in person. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll come back with a review of it as well, I guess. But, that is really the takeaway is at the beginning there's this kind of neat period, especially when you're new to the game, buying the railroads, trying to figure out what works. After a couple of plays, it becomes completely patterned, at least with the groups that I was in, and I never saw anybody play differently than grab the Northeast, grab the Southwest, because quite simply the odds go in the favor of those. So if everybody were to bucket, if everybody were to go against the odds, I bet you the groupthink would actually win out against the odds tables to a large extent. But on the other hand, I've seen people do pretty well who've managed to get, say, the NYC and the Penn in like a 4-player game. So certainly with the Northeast, you could probably hammer things down really, really nasty. That was in an early game, though, where there wasn't a clear groupthink. One of the guys' first big purchase was the Crip. He likes the railroad. It didn't work. The game fell into this pattern. It became pretty clear that it never breaks out of that pattern. And then it comes down to who gets lucky, who manages their resources reasonably well. I think that's sort of a very low bar. And then who gets lucky within it. And there's just not that much of interest once you've played it a couple of times. Alright, anyway, I'll actually, the hell with it. This is enough of a review for my taste for this. I'll link a little bit more at the end just for whatever reason.